Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Penarium. $9.99 came out of the Steam store last week. It is an action game in which you perform in a deadly circus and attempt to, well, stay alive. You are Willy, you are a farmer boy who just wanted adventures and fun, and well, he chose the wrong circus. But before I begin, I want to make sure you guys know that this key was obtained from evolve.pr, the PR company, in purposes of making a video about it and covering the game. That won't affect my opinion of the game, but I want to make sure you guys know for the purposes of disclosure. Now, Penarium is an action platformer, and you have a couple of options in terms of your gameplay. You can play the campaign mode, you can play an arcade mode, or you can play multiplayer in a versus mode or a co-op mode. I'll be focusing on the campaign and arcade modes in question, but the multiplayer mode isn't anything special in my eyes. Now, I'm going to play a couple of the campaign modes for you and show you exactly what the game has to offer. Now, here's our ringmaster. He basically kidnapped us. I mean, he basically did the whole white van candy thing, like, oh, look, adventure. You'll be able to watch the performance of a lifetime, not telling Willy that he was actually performing. So, he's introducing some different traps in this specific level. I felt this level was a good sort of hybrid of what the game has to offer and, you know, a little bit more difficult. The game starts off relatively easy, but gets harder as things go along. Now, Willy has a couple of skills here. They actually do indicate that this specific circus has a weird form of gravity or air about it, so that he could actually double jump. So his main ability is to double jump, of course, but he could also do little things like wrap around the screen, like this. Now that's very useful for certain traps that the game has to throw at you, especially with lasers, for example, where it will actually go to one side of the screen to the next. Now, the traps vary from the waterfalls, as you see here, to these, you know, sort of shuriken-type death machines, to the water trap, which just sort of affects your gravity at that point. It will push you down towards the forest there. And the traps is partly where I think the game starts to falter. Unfortunately, it's not like there aren't good traps in this game. There are. I do like certain combinations, and I think that over time, the game does a reasonable job in terms of using those traps to the best of its abilities. However, the biggest problem I have with it is that it sort of shows what it has to offer, and then nothing more. There needed to be a little bit more variety in traps because sooner or later it gets very, very old rather quickly. Now you get traps like this that are introduced that do mix up the formula a little bit, but overall, once you're about 10 to 12 levels into the game has really showed you exactly what it has to offer, and that is sort of disappointing, to be honest with you. Now, the first couple of levels aren't that challenging, and even though it does change up variety a tiny bit with certain, certain types of levels, it never really gets that hard up until it speeds things up. Now, I'm going to play the button level because this is sort of the... what's the word I'm looking for? This is where I think some of the design elements didn't work for me, but I want to show it to you anyway. Alright, so the idea in this level is that I have to push the buttons in Simon Says kind of order at this point. So I hold onto that button, wait for the missiles to go, and then go to the next one. Now, this can actually be interesting because with all the death traps that happen, like this laser, you could almost forget what's going on with the Simon Says portion and realize that, oh wait, what did I just hit? Now, not to say that that isn't annoying. I find these kind of sort of traps in question to be a little bit when you've run out of ideas. And I feel like even though they implemented it well here, I felt like it was a symptom of where the game, you know, sort of lacked in terms of content, unfortunately. It just didn't do the job when it came down to it to keep my interest over a period of time. Now, I played the game for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I would say at this point, and I feel like even after the first hour, the game had shown me what it needed to show. And not to say that the gameplay here isn't good. The controls are responsive. The traps in question, especially with specific levels, do the job rather nicely. In particular, like this section of the trap where you're having to go back to the middle, it actually works rather well because of the fact that you have to do that along with remembering what's going on with the buttons in question. And I actually did lose a couple of times here just because I wasn't paying attention. Now you're probably wondering, well, Sean, that looked like pretty much the same thing that you did in the first one. Yeah, that's pretty much it, and that's partially my point. Now, not to say that the game doesn't have moments where, it does work rather well. When level design comes into play, I think the game does a lot better in terms of when it changes up the levels. As you see here, we got this sort of custom level here. They've slowed down the missiles in question to the normal speed, and they actually changed things up rather nicely here. I would like to have seen them do this a little bit more in the game, where they mess around with the traps just a tiny bit to change up what you expected from them. Now, as you see here, I'm trying to stay in the spotlight, but that's a little bit hard, as you saw there. It's that kind of misdirection that works in these kind of games, because it's all about expectation. When you get the characters into situations where they're comfortable, or you get the player when they're comfortable in these kinds of games, the game doesn't work. Because again, if they're comfortable, they feel confident, and they're able to, jump and deal with all these situations rather easily. But when you switch it up on them like this, then they're a little bit sort of, taken aback, and they don't know what to do. Especially with that sort of, like the side screen there. As the missiles, come off screen, I don't know what exactly to do. And then you do that. You do something like that where you speed up the missiles in question, and again, change expectations. Again, when they do that in this game, it works rather well. For example, they introduce bowling balls very early on that just basically roll at you. But later on, then they change the bowling balls a little bit to a different color, and it bounces. And that bounce is very slight, but I shouldn't say very slight. There is a significant bounce in it, but that little change changed a lot, because now, of all the expectations I had for that bowling ball, it's gone now. Oh boy. Now, the thing about where I think this game could have done a little bit better with is that when it comes down to it, this sort of, campaign mode in question, it really needed sort of a time limit, something to force the player into perilous situations. See, like this spotlight, your stopwatch doesn't really drain that fast. And so really when it comes down to it, I don't really have to take any risks in terms of gameplay here. I get to be very, very methodical, and it'll work most of the time. Oops. Except when I do stupid stuff like that. Where I think the game does better is in arcade mode. And in arcade mode, which I'm going to play this one here because it's the one I've unlocked, further down the line, it's basically get as many coins as possible. And this works a little bit better because the player has something to sort of go against in terms of like, okay, I have a definite goal, not just to survive, but to earn as many coins as possible. Like, I could sit here and get as many coins, or, you stay around and, make the safe plays, but I may not get the coins in question. So those coins can unlock power-ups in arcade mode, as you saw at the start there, and those coins can be rather useful, like, those power-ups, like, greed, for example, is a good example of that. Oh boy, I'm in trouble. So it takes into account your personal best, time survived, collected, and your wallet. Now, I think the game does, again, well here, but part of the problem, again, is the level design. There are 3 arcade modes that I've unlocked at this point, and they're all the same level. What I would have liked to have seen is it randomize the level in question as well, because that would have really done well in terms of replayability. Now, I understand that, for like high score kinds of modes, you do want some familiarity to it. But it's sort of counterbalanced by the fact that there's no leaderboards from what I've seen. And that sort of sucks. Okay, I'm gonna move over here, watch the bees. Everybody hates bees, not the bees. In joke, blah, blah, blah. I'm not very good at humor. I'm very good at getting killed by bees, though. You see, Penarium is this odd case where the game is very competent, does what it sets out to do. It's making a action platformer where survival is key, and the understanding of when to go and when to sort of, step back, it does that rather well. But the problem is that it's a very much like a Circus in question. It's very flashy, but when you look at it and you look at the sort of details behind it, it's not as impressive as you first thought. Now, of course, that's subject to opinion. I'm not a very big fan of the Circus, as you probably figured out there. But I felt like the game was very much like a firework. It showed what it needed to do. It showed what it wanted to show in the first hour or so, but then that's it. And unfortunately, even with co-op modes and, some multiplayer aspects to it, there are just better platformers of this type that I enjoyed a lot more. Part of that is the fact that, like, power-ups, for example, can be somewhat difficult to get, but I really felt like power-ups would have really been good for gameplay in general, even in the campaign mode. Again, to add to that variety, level design in particular, there are some levels that are very, very uninspired in this game, in my opinion, where it just throws a bunch of platforms on the screen and really doesn't think about what the design elements of the game have to offer in terms of, okay, what has changed in this level design that really changes the experience in question. All right, I gotta get the power up here. I am now a leprechaun, and of course, because I'm a leprechaun, that means gold. Lots and lots of gold. So, as you see in the right-hand corner there, every coin that I'm getting is now worth 5. Reasonable. Now, what do I mean by the level design in question? Well, I want to take an example. I believe, trying to remember what one it was. I think it was this one. Yeah. Yes. So, this seems simple, right? But there's little expectations that are changed here with this level design. It's a very good level design in this question, because you'll notice that the one difference in this level is the fact that you can't jump one side to the other in a certain case. Like here, I can do this, but oh shit, I can't go that way, and now I've got to move myself along these platforms a little bit differently because of the fact that I can't escape to the other side. It's level design like that that really worked in this game in particular. This laser, for example. Okay, cool. Now I have to be very specific about the way I move and make sure that I don't move myself into a situation with the barrels that I can really screw up it. And then it's this. Okay, cool. The bouncing bowling ball then changes all expectations completely at that point, because now your sort of jumping patterns have changed entirely. When the game did this and changed the expectations, it did it well. And it's just, I think that's why I'm so, not ashamed, but I'm so disappointed that it couldn't keep that up. Because if it did, I could see a game that I could easily recommend, because when that change in expectation happens, lo and behold, I'm having a lot of fun. It's frustrating, that's for sure, but I'm definitely enjoying what I'm playing at this point. Overall, you probably have understood my expectation of Penarium. It's a flash in the pan. It's very good at what it does in terms of the base gameplay. Controls are great. Its presentation is reasonable. It's not the prettiest looking of games, but it definitely has a little bit of a charm to it. But as I've mentioned over and over and over again in this video, it doesn't do enough. And when you're asking for $10, I know doesn't seem like a lot, but when you can get games of this type that can last you, 3 to 4 hours at $10, it's really hard for me to sit here and say, yeah, no, this is definitely worth your price of admission. Even if it was worth 15 bucks and, you know, it had a lot more content, I could have recommended it, but that's where my ultimate decision lies here, guys, is the fact that Penarium just does not have the content in order to stick around, even with the arcade and power-ups, even with some of the cool level designs when they do show up. It just unfortunately falls flat. Alright, this is Dragnix signing out. I hope you got an idea of what Penarium has to offer. Again, I will leave my Steam review and the store page in the description below. Again, I always say this, guys, depending on what your tastes are, if you like what you see and like what I've described here, yeah, then go get the game. Because again, this game does have strengths, and if you can sort of take that with its weaknesses, then lo and behold, you know, go for it. But otherwise, I would unfortunately avoid Penarium. Alright, I will talk to you all later. Have a good day. Blood Bowl 2 is coming tomorrow because I wanted to spend a little bit more time on it. I will see you then. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left hand side as well. And if you missed my last video, take a look at the right hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.